Alright guys, today we're going to be doing something that's pretty fun and also pretty easy, but I want you to have enough time to explore and find stuff that you like and want to use. So we're going to take some time on this, but it shouldn't be too hard. First thing to do is just open up a browser, probably Chrome, and then just Google search for Mixamo. It should easily be your first result right up here, clicking on that. Now, since for most of you this will be your first time here, you'll see something that looks like this. Just go ahead and click sign up for free. It really is free. There's nothing to worry about paying. They're not going to ask you for a credit card or anything like that. And you'll notice this is all done through Adobe, so the same company that makes Photoshop and all those other programs that you're used to. But go ahead and create an account. It's probably easier actually just to click on login and then continue with Google, since you all have Gmail accounts already. Now, once you are logged in, you should see something that looks like this. So on the left we see a lot of different animations that we can use, and we will be using some of these soon. And on the right, you'll see my character, and whenever I select one of these animations, my character will act out that animation. So right now, I have this ninja. You probably have something different. And the first thing that I want you to do is go and find a character that you want to show up in your game world. For right now, let's avoid picking a player character, and let's pick somebody that will be like an NPC, another character in the game that you can walk up to and maybe potentially talk to if we get that far. You know, I'm actually going to change my animation right now because this capoeira dance is actually kind of annoying. Probably a good animation to use during this would be some kind of an idle animation. An idle animation is what we call the animation that we use when we're just kind of standing around and not doing anything in particular. So here's a pretty basic idle animation that will still let us see our character without so much crazy movement. So let's jump back to characters and see what we can find. Now, seeing as we're doing a Survivor Island theme, you could have something like a pretty plain-looking character like this. In the show Survivor, lots of people show up in pretty average-looking clothes. We probably don't want whatever this thing is, because this probably isn't going to show up anywhere in the real world. And we probably don't want somebody who's wearing, like, some sort of a cybernetic ninja suit, because that doesn't really fit what we're doing either. So this may narrow your options a bit, but there's definitely some good, realistic, usable models that we could put into our scene. So I highly recommend looking for a model that you like that's also fairly realistic and seems like it could be believably on your desert island with you. There's still a lot of good options to choose from. Remember, we're not picking a main character at this point, just a supporting character or somebody else who's going to be on the island. So you might not want to pick your absolute favorite. So even within the restrictions that we have, there's still lots of viable options. I think I'll just go with David here. So I've got David, and if you haven't already done it, make sure that you do go get an animation. Specifically, let's start with an idle animation to make this easy. So once you've found an idle animation and it's applied to your character, then all you need to do is click on download. Since this is our first time, let's take a look at some of our settings. In the format, we have FBX, and we also have XBX for Unity, and then we have a last option down here, which we're going to pretty much ignore, because an FBX is what we want. And while you might think an FBX for Unity sounds perfect, we actually don't want to use that setting right now. So just make sure that your format is set on FBX. Frames per second, you could crank it up to 60 or down to 24, but 30 should be just fine. Keyframe reduction, you can ignore that setting entirely for right now. And skin, when they say skin, they're talking about what the character looks like. It's possible to download an animation where it just has the information that goes directly to the skeleton underneath the skin, and can animate any character with a similar skeleton, without worrying about what their skin or clothes or any of that stuff looks like. But because we haven't downloaded this guy yet, let's go ahead and make sure that we have with skin set. Later, we might switch to downloading without skin, because we can get animations faster by downloading less information. So I'll click download, and we will have to wait just a moment, but then we should see our download pop up down here. Now our download is done, and one of the easiest ways to find it is simply to click Show in Finder. And that'll open up my downloads, and the next thing I'm going to do is just drag this into Unity. I'm going to first click on my main assets folder here, and then I'm going to Control-click down here, hover on Create, and I'm going to make a new folder up at the top. I'm just going to call this My Characters. So now I've got my My Characters folder open. I'm going to go get my character animation and drag and drop it in. It'll take just a moment to import those assets, but as soon as this loading bar is done, we should be good to go. So let's drag our new character into the scene and see how he looks. I'm going to do this close to my playable character, just so that it's easier when I test play to walk up to this character and see how it's turning out. First off, this character feels a little bit larger than maybe he should be. I mean, maybe he's just a big dude. But if the size feels like a problem, instead of scaling your character up, it'll be better to scale the NPC down, which we might do in a little bit. The even more noticeable problem, though, is that he has no color. The version of this that we looked at in Mixamo looked like it was really finished and believable, and this one just looks like a statue. So let's see how we can fix this problem. We'll jump out of play mode, and we'll go to our breathing idol, which is kind of a weird name for this character, so I'm going to rename this real quick. I'm going to call this NPC1. But the issue with NPC1 here, as we expand him and look at his different parts in the hierarchy, he's got a body, and eyelashes, and hair, and a hoodie, and pants, and sneakers, all these different parts. All of the shaders are just this blank gray. There's really nothing going on here. I mean, I could change the color, but that still wouldn't give us the result that we want. So what you need to do is, in your characters folder, when you brought him in, you should see that you also brought in a couple of folders. If I open up this breathing idol folder here, I'll see some different images that are actually textures that will make this guy look just as good as he did when we were back in the Mixamo website. So let's get a good view of our NPC so we can see how this plays out while we're working on him. So I'm going to select not just NPC1, but the body. And then, where it says albedo, I'm going to bring in this first image on the far left. This is called the diffuse texture. Alright, that's some serious progress. You can see we have all the color there, but he definitely doesn't look as good as he did when he was in Mixamo. So what's still going wrong here? Let's look at our other images. This is the diffuse. These are his main colors. But we also have an image that has information about his glossiness. We'll have a normal map, which some of you may have heard of something similar to this referred to as a bump map. This is 2D information, which is sort of an optical illusion to make it look like there's depth to the image. And this will go a long way towards improving our realism. And then we also have specular settings, which is for anything that glows, which doesn't seem like this is going to have a big effect because this character doesn't have like glowing headphones or anything like that, but it might make a small difference. So let's go back to the body and see where are we going to use these other images. Our glossiness, we want to probably put in this metallic box right here. So I'm going to drag this over to metallic, drop that in. Now you can see when we first drag this in, you're probably thinking, that looks like a mistake, because this looks like some creepy mannequin now. And you're right. The most important one is this smoothness slider. When this is all the way up at 1, yeah, this guy looks like he's made out of polished porcelain or something right now. He actually does receive some light and have some shininess to him. You can see when we take this smoothness down to 0, it looks incredibly flat and kind of cartoony. So if we play around with this slider, you can find the right amount of shininess. I mean, anybody, if you shine a light on their forehead, you're going to see a little bit of a reflection. So already I'm at 0.7, and that's clearly too much. 0.53 still looks pretty shiny. But maybe something around 0.4, or maybe even just 0.2 or 0.3. You can see the way that the light responds to him looks much more realistic now. So that's a pretty big improvement. Next is our normal map. When we add our normal map in, this should have a pretty drastic change in how detailed our character looks. So we're going to take this normal map, and we're going to drag it into the normal map box. Now as I do this, it says the texture is not marked as a normal map. So when we imported this, Unity didn't automatically realize that this was a normal map. We could change this by hand, but we don't really need to. If we hit this Fix Now button, it'll take care of that for us. And the change is actually a little more subtle, but it definitely added some texture to things like his sweater and the hair. I feel like they have a lot more depth now than they did before, if you look closely. And really, our specular import settings here I don't think are going to be very helpful, so we can probably just ignore those for the time being. Now let's go take another look at our character. Alright, he's starting to look much more realistic. You'll notice an additional problem though. He's completely stationary, frozen like a statue, doesn't even look like he's breathing. He's not using the animation that we brought in for him. But we're going to save setting up animator controllers and getting his animation working for next time. So for today, go ahead, find something in Mixamo that you like, make sure that you bring along the character and at least one animation, bring it into Unity, get it set up so that yours looks as good as mine does right now. Then, take a screenshot of your character in Unity with your textures applied and share it with us in the comments on Schoology. Alright, good luck and have fun.